Thank you, Zoom Siri. And also thank you, everyone out there in podcast land, for coming back for another episode of Different Strings, a guitar adjacent podcast. I am, as always, Wayne, and right here with me is, no, I'm sorry, wrong podcast. I'm Wes, one of your hosts, and my other host is my good friend, Andy. Andy, please say hello to everybody.
Oh my God, hi.
I don't know if I can give you a fantastic on that, but it was definitely well done. Our topic this week is the concept album. And of course, we're going to be leaning heavily on guitar-oriented concept albums. But first, Andy has some housekeeping business to do, and that starts with telling everybody where they can find us on the internet.
Yes, you may please find us at differentstringspodcast.com, and you can email us your questions or topic ideas at contact@differentstringspodcast.com. And good news, if you're over 70 and racist, you can find us on Facebook at Different Strings Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, hit the bell, comment, and do all the things. Also, please subscribe to Different Strings Podcast wherever you consume such media so you don't miss an action-packed episode. But I have some interesting information for all you folks out there. Are you a music lover? Do you bop? Are you into sexy music, sparkly guitars, and lots of reverb? Then you should know that Wes has a solo project. That's right. Wes has a solo project. He left his band for greener pastures. His solo project is called Hypersonic Secret, and they recently released, and I say they meaning Wes, recently released its first EP. It's called Project Mayhem. I'm sorry, let me do that again. It's called Project Mayhem, exclamation mark. Look at that, on vinyl. That is dope. It's available on Bandcamp, so just check out hypersonicSecret.bandcamp.com to pick up a copy of that awesome slab of surf adjacent rock and or roll.
Yeah, and I still have some vinyl copies left in both black, traditional black 180 gram, and clear, which is so cool.
I've
As
listened
well
to
as,
this album, my friend, and I have a review for you.
oh, is it a 2-word review? Is the review shit sandwich?
No, it is a good review. I think this album slaps. Um, and I have several favorites, but I will save those for I want people to listen to this album and I want them to get it, buy it, listen to it, and tell us what their favorites are. But I don't want to poison the well here. I don't want to start telling you you know what my favorite is, but I'm not going to say it to everyone.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And maybe in a future episode, we can get into some of the details of recording, because I think the way I approached it could help a lot of people.
Yeah, you and I were talking a lot while you were not while you were recording, definitely while you were mixing
Yeah.
and some mastering. And it was interesting to watch your thought process. But I also think it's interesting because unlike many people today, you still do things very old school, microphone, amp, like the whole nine yards, which, that's for what it's worth, that's down and dirty.
Yeah. Yeah.
So very different approach, but I respect, mad respect.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Loved
So,
it.
having said all that, and I appreciate the plug, let's move on to our opening act, which is, ladies and gentlemen, a news flash. News flash.
Dude, I have an audition next week.
That's exciting.
It kind of is. So lots of excitement in the Andy camp. I haven't played in a band in many years now. I don't know, five at least five, maybe longer. I think it's been
Since
more than five.
pre-pandemic.
Yeah, pre-pandemic, and that was 2019. So yeah, it'd been at least 5 years. No, probably
Yeah.
closer to 10. And I also just don't pick up the guitar as much as I used to. And I don't know, I got the bug and I decided I wanted to get back out there again. And I literally posted an ad looking for a band. And that day I got contacted from a local band. They do 90s rock and top 40. And they sounded great. And I decided I wanted to give it a go. And I wanted to talk about it because I wanted to share with you some of like my reservations, what I'm going through, my approach to learning these. It's only 3 songs, by the way, and also like
You have
just what's
a
going
a
on.
3-song audition?
Yeah.
All right, if you don't nail that, we're not friends anymore.
Well,
3 songs.
3 songs. I know they're taking it easy on me. Well, I say that. So they picked 3 songs, and I'm curious to get your take on these 3 songs. Although I don't know if you've ever played them, you may not really have any take on it, but I just wanted to share with you that the first song that they want me to learn is by The Killers, and it's called Mr. Brightside. Are you familiar?
I've heard the song, I've never played it. It's a pretty happening track.
Yeah, I love the song. It's really hard to play properly. So
Well,
I
don't they have 2 guitar players?
no.
No.
They do, however, have a given the type of music that the Killers play, they have a very talented guitar player. Don't know his name because why would I know his name? Um, but Mr. Brightside features some of the weirdest chords I have ever played on a guitar, including some ridiculous stretches. And I don't know if you can tell, I got tiny hands,
Tiny hands. Not me.
tiny hands. And so, in addition to these stretches, there's also extensive use of the pinky finger. And
Nice.
not only have I not played guitar in a while, um, but it's making use of my weakest little pinky finger.
Mm.
So I am
Which probably doesn't have a good callus on it.
my calluses are almost gone. Yeah.
Nice.
This so they knew what they were doing when they sent me this song to learn. I'm just telling you, it's not
Yeah.
impossible to play the song, but to do it right, and I think most, I shouldn't say I think most. I should say I've seen a lot of guitar players purposely play it wrong, like they cheat because
Yeah.
it's very hard to play
Because
properly,
and they figure, well, it's good enough.
close enough. And I just can't do that because literally in my emails back and forth with the gentleman, I told him I'm a stickler for details.
Nice.
So,
The guitar player's name is David Huning, and he's
okay.
one of the co-founders of the band.
Yeah. It's a 14 years ago, by the way, the song came out.
Wow.
Doesn't feel like it's been 14 years. Um, so they knew what they were doing when they sent this to me. They definitely picked, at least from a guitar perspective, I think that was a good choice because they're testing me. I'm just saying. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
the other song they picked was by the band Blues Traveler. Do you remember John Popper and Blues Traveler?
I do. Is it Hook?
It's Runaround.
Which is basically Hook in a different key.
Okay. And
I'm actually joking. I don't know how to play either song, but I do remember Blues Traveler, the thing that was from a guitar player's perspective, it was not a guitar player band. So, or it didn't come across like a guitar player band. So,
so Blues
I think
Traveler,
it would be interesting to have to play a part that basically repeats and keep it interesting for you and the listener.
there's a lot to unpack there. The first thing is, I think you know that Blues Traveler is most notorious for John Popper and his ridiculous harmonica skills.
Oh yeah.
This band does not have a harmonica player. So guess who's playing the harmonica parts on the guitar?
Let me guess, Andy.
Yeah. So I think this was also a test because I think they want to know in situations where you have to think outside the box and pretend to be another instrument, what you going to do? How are
Yeah,
you going to
can you
do it?
actually do that? Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I saw a video of someone, which, by the way, was ridiculous. Someone did a note for note solo, a harmonica solo on the guitar, like one of the blues,
Mm.
not this song, but a different song. It doesn't sound right.
No, because it's not harmonica.
Right. It doesn't have the same. So, not that I was going to do that, but I'm definitely not going to do that now that I actually know what it sounds like. I
Right.
actually emailed a friend of mine today. Um, His name is Kevin. He's one of the most brilliant guitar players in the local scene. I have mad respect for this guy, and he's a super nice dude to boot. And the reason I emailed him is because he was in a band years ago called the Rigby's, and the Rigby's did a cover of a Bruce Springsteen song, and he played the keyboard solo on the guitar, note
Nice.
for note, and it sounded amazing. I mean, it sounded really, really great. Oh, it was Rosalita, by the way. That's the song.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so I emailed Kevin and I'm like, this is your wheelhouse. What would you do here? And he was like, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. Make it up.
So
Go in there and
he's
jam your ass off.
he didn't know. Like, so glad I reached out to you, Kev. Thanks. The good news though, if he's listening, thank you, Kevin, is that I did decide to look up the actual key of the song, and I thought, okay, well, it's G major, which
I
theoretically
can do
is
that.
E blues, and I'm just gonna improvise in E blues. What are you gonna do? Fire me? Can't fire me.
Right.
Okay. The third song, the third song, the third song was Shania Twain's Man, I Feel Like a Woman, which I can only assume is a fucking dig at my transgender ass. And fight me, fight me.
However, having said that, remember who her producer was?
Mutt Lang,
Mutt Lang, and that is a killer song with some really cool guitar going on
of
in it.
course. And I know that song from way back. I have played that song in every band I've been in. So that was a gimme. They didn't know that, but that's a gimme. And I
Hmm.
play it
I wonder
properly with the
I
capo on the
wonder if that
first
was
fret.
a subliminal thing for you.
Dude, I'm telling you, dude, I think that was them sending a message to me. Now, I did tell them I was transgender before I auditioned, and they said that's no thing. And then they sent me that. Man, I
Okay.
feel like a woman.
I gotta love their sense of humor about that.
Yeah.
And kudos to them for, because I know that hasn't I know this the transition hasn't been easy. So kudos to them for not making a big deal out of it and accepting you as a guitar player, period.
Yeah, exactly. And they sent me a screenshot. I love this part. I'm only kidding when I say that they're digging that song was a dig. Although they could be showing their sense of humor, which kudos. Um, however, they sent me a screenshot because I asked Mr. Brightside, by the way, is recorded a half step down.
Of course it is.
Right. Right. Every pop band down tunes a half step. Um, and they play it in D major. So the song is in D major, but it's played a half step down. So I have been in several bands that played this song and they've all done it differently. One band made me use a guitar that was a half step down. One band played it in E flat and I had to adjust the parts. It's a nightmare. So being prepared as I am, I texted and said, "Hey, what key do you play the song in? And are you tuned in standard? What do you do?" And I was talking with the drummer, and of course the drummer doesn't know a gosh darn thing
Damn
about
thing.
the key. So he texted someone else in the band. He sent me a screenshot of the response, and both of them referred to me as she. So again, kudos for getting my pronouns right. In fact, they asked my pronouns immediately. So again, unlike the band that ghosted me after I told them I was trans, this band seems to be doing everything right. And I'm feeling pretty confident that I might get the gig. I'm just saying.
Cool.
Also,
Well, good luck. I hope that goes well.
we have a mutual friend, so the drummer of this band knows someone that I know, and I said, feel free to reach out to that individual and get a reference. So, I
Smart.
mean, yeah. So I'm excited. I'm in pain
What
because I haven't played in a while and
what
practicing.
was the what was the answer to the key on the Killers tune?
Oh, so they're doing it. They don't detune. They play it in D major, but standard tuning, which is exactly what
Okay.
I was hoping they would say.
So they just basically play it up a half step
They don't,
from
yeah,
the recording.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
That shows that the singer has versatility and can listen to a song in one key and play it in another key. because it doesn't sound like a big difference, but that's a
It is.
big difference.
It absolutely is. Sometimes
I think
playing a song in a weird key can be, like if you play it, you put a capo on and you're going to play a song, the song, but you put a capo on and all of a sudden you forgot the song. I've been there. That happened to me all the time.
yeah, yeah. Well, I don't want to steal your thunder
Please steal my thunder.
because I'm very happy for you that you got an audition, and I'm glad. I feel like doing the podcast has got you back interested in playing in a band because we keep talking about bands so much. So,
Yeah.
aces.
Yeah.
I recently had an audition as well.
Wait, what?
Um, I did. I did. I auditioned for I don't know what they call themselves,
Okay.
but I would call them a modern Americana rock band. So
Okay.
it's country-ish, but it's also still rock and rock.
Okay.
Um, but it's not modern country music, which is basically just pop music with a fake twangy accent from the singer. It's more rootsy than that. Uh, and I first started emailing with these folks from a Craigslist ad. They reached out to me after a post I made in December, and just through various machinations, I ended up not actually having the audition until April. So it's been a long time. But I had to learn 5 songs. I had
Okay.
my hour slot at the audition. They made me play a song over again because I tanked it.
Oh,
Very first song, I completely blew the solo. I mean, just blew it.
but they didn't
They made
make
me
you
play
play
the
it
song
again.
again.
They gave you an opportunity to play it again rather than
Yes.
judge you, right? Because you
Yeah.
had you had audition jitters.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was fine from there on out. And I struggled with the more country parts of the songs. I struggled with
Okay.
the rock stuff. I just flat out nailed. I've no doubts about that.
Okay.
So it really comes down to whether they want, and they were straight up. They said they're having trouble finding somebody that can do both. So they
Okay.
may not pick anybody that auditioned in that round. But they've auditioned people that nailed the country stuff and couldn't do the rock, and they had people that nailed the rock and couldn't do the country. And I do feel like because of my years of teaching different styles, I had a little bit of an up. I made sure that I played slide where slide was on the original recordings. And there was a couple of songs that were in drop D, which I thought was really cool and very music forward for an Americana rock band. Well, it turns out the lead singer, who is the main songwriter and also the rhythm guitar player, he capos at the second fret for those songs. But I thought they sounded really cool in drop D, and that it brought a whole new. I think I brought a layer that they hadn't heard to those songs by not using a capo and playing them straight, but in drop D.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so it gave a bigger bottom end to those songs. Um,
So let me ask you a question about your audition. First of all, how far
okay.
away was it?
I just had to go into the city, so it was about 20 or 25 minutes. It wasn't bad.
So did you do any like logistical planning in terms of like what gear am I going to bring to an audition? Do you think about, and I know it's a loaded question because I haven't answered for my
Yeah.
audition, but I'm wondering like if you know you're showing up for 5 songs in an hour, do you bring like like a quicker load in just so you're like not
Yeah,
wasting a lot of time?
I did. I didn't know what their practice space was like.
Right.
There's 6 people in the band, so I assumed the practice space would be crowded.
Yeah, you never
So,
know.
yeah, I took my Tone King Falcon Grande, which is a single channel amp, but it has 3 voicings.
Hmm.
Um, and so the the lowest gain voicing was really good for the country stuff. The middle gain voicing was really good for the rock stuff, and the highest gain voicing is what I used for solos.
Okay.
Um, so that worked out really well. I had a much more compact pedal board, was one line of 5 pedals. And they had one guy who showed up with they could and I'm quoting, a janky guitar and no tuner.
Oh.
Like,
Womp
I'll
womp.
just tune to you guys. Yeah, wah wah. So they liked that I had a tuner on my board, and I did actually use the pedals that were on the board. I tried to be very conscientious of the songs, and I used a chorus and I used a tremolo in a couple of places,
Uh-huh.
and that. So, but yeah, I took a very compact setup, and
Okay.
because I knew I didn't know what kind of space I would be in, and I took the 20-watt amp because that's going to be loud enough to get over a drummer and not so loud that it blows everybody out of the room.
Yeah. Yeah. This
For
is a
three
three.
songs, I'd be tempted to just show up with a combo and a guitar cable.
Not even pedals.
Yeah, not even pedals. Well, a tuner, of course.
Or I guess a clip-on. So
Yeah.
that's an interesting point. So I actually emailed this band or I emailed the drummer and asked if I could bring my Kemper. Um, because the Kemper isn't an amp, it's just a modeler. It doesn't have its own speaker. I don't have a speaker for it anymore. I did sell it, probably foolishly. Um, I had a Line 6 power cab specifically for the Kemper, that was collecting massive amounts of dust. So I sold it, and now what I need is a power cab, and I'm not buying another one. So anyway, I emailed them and asked, because how do I know that I show up there and they only have a 3-channel board or a 2-channel board and they're using it?
Yeah.
So I just said, hey, I would it be okay if I just bring a Kemper and run it into the board? I want to make my setup super fast and I don't want to waste any time. And like you, I don't know if I'm going to walk in there and it's going to be a tiny space. I know that there's several people in that band and I don't know how cramped it's going to be. So yeah, they were really cool about it. Um, I don't know if that's going to be my permanent rig. I don't know, like that's the type of thing I'll figure out once I get down there. And if I get an offer, I can see, well, what do you all use? Are you all using amps or are you all going direct? If they're all going direct, then the Kemper's that's going to be my main rig.
Right. Right.
So be curious to see how it all works out. But I'll keep you all posted. I'm excited and nervous, and my fingers hurt.
And my fingers hurt.
My fingies hurt.
Yeah, I
So
just had my sit-in gig with the surf band, and after weeks and weeks of practicing their set, my calluses are back and stronger than ever.
well, see, you play so much more than I do. You are very active right now, and I definitely have not been playing. I mean, I'm like not rusty from a playing perspective, but my fingers, I have really lost my calluses. Oh, you know what? It might be
Yeah.
the hormones too. The hormones are making my skin super baby soft. Anyway, um, so while we're hey, transition stuff. While we're talking, I do want to mention that speaking of sexy, there's something really sexy behind you, and it's not your tick figurine. Would you like care to share that
Sure,
sexy
sure.
because that's Wes is grabbing. I will not say what this is. There is an official name for this guitar.
This is, can you hear me? This is the Surfcaster of Doom,
Look at that.
and it used to be Silverburst. It's an American Professional 2 Fender Stratocaster body in their Mystic Silver, whatever they called it. It was basically Silverburst. And I had it refinished to orange sparkle,
Mm.
and I think it looks amazing. Here's the kicker, though, Andy. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready for the kicker. Matching headstock with logo, and it's 70 style.
And it's under the finish. Now, this is a real, I'll show you. This is a real, that's a real Fender neck.
Yes, it is.
It's, that's one of the things that was the hitch. It took me a long time to find somebody who was willing to refinish that, match the head cap,
Yep.
and put the decal on under the clear,
Yeah.
because that's that nobody wants to be accused of pirating.
Yeah, exactly. Making a
Nobody
counterfeit.
wants to be accused of counterfeiting. Exactly. So I sent them a copy of the receipt from when I bought the neck. I bought it new from Sweetwater. So it was all above board.
What's going on with them pickups there, Chief?
That is a set of Fender's Custom Shop 69 pickups.
Mm-hmm.
You know, basically they're Jimi Hendrix specials.
Mm-hmm.
And you may not notice
I do
Although
notice.
something's off. The
Hmm.
bridge pickup is reverse angled
Yes, it is.
because of the great Dick Dale, who played a right-handed guitar flipped over because he was left-handed,
Yeah.
and I feel like that gave him a much tighter bass response. So I wanted to emulate that.
That's dope. What a nice tribute. That's a great looking guitar, by the way. I can't wait to hear
Yeah.
it.
And no cover on the back.
Of
You can still
course.
see the polishing compound embedded in the screw holes.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
I'm
Congratulations.
really happy with it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And I know it just came in today and you haven't had a chance to put it through its paces yet. So hopefully in a future episode, we will find out just precisely how that guitar sounds and plays.
Well, it should sound exactly like it did before I send it off because it's the same pickups. So if you want to go and listen to Hypersonic Secret's first release, Project Mayhem exclamation point, it's all over that album. Little, what do you call that? A
Plug,
callback.
a
Yeah.
plug and a callback. All right, cool. All right. So I guess we're ready for a headliner, which has nothing to do with auditions, right?
It 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 does not.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Oh, excuse me. Um, so we're going to talk about concept albums today, which is, I don't want to say it's a sticky subject, but it can be a little challenging sometimes.
Okay.
Um, because well, why don't we start off with what is a concept album?
Yeah. What is it?
I'm
So,
asking you, what is it?
oh,
What do you think it is?
okay. Well, I think since you're putting me on the spot, my definition of a concept album is a collection of songs with a common running theme throughout all of the songs. A
See,
common,
we already disagree,
oh, what? Okay, go ahead. Hit me.
right? Because based on what you just said,
Hmm.
Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd is a concept album.
Okay.
I think a concept album should tell a story, which means Dark Side of the Moon is not a concept album.
Oh, see, I've, yeah,
I'm not militant about it though, right? I'm open to other people interpreting concept album as songs with a coherent theme instead of a consistent story from beginning to end.
right, because a concept is an idea, and
Exactly.
there's
And
right.
ideas are open to interpretation.
Yeah.
And just because I think something needs to exist for it to be called a concept album doesn't mean that's what everybody agrees on. As a matter of fact, the vast majority of people agree with you. And once
Oh,
again, I am on the outside.
okay. Oh, quick heads up. For some reason, your audio, your microphone audio is like bumping up every so often and then like coming back down and then going all the way back
Weird.
up. Yeah.
Probably
It's like,
probably because
I wonder
I'm
if it's,
going in.
I don't know. I couldn't tell. All right.
I'll
Um,
try and maintain a consistent difference, and hopefully that will help.
yeah. Okay. So funny that you mentioned the, that Dark Side of the Moon, because I never knew that was a concept album.
Really,
Never knew until
till
I
just
saw it
now.
on your, till, yes. And I've listened, this is one of my favorite Pink Floyd albums. And it never dawned on me that this was a concept album, including after reading all the lyrics. I
Oh,
just didn't know. So now I got to go back and listen to it yet again.
yeah. See, I consider Dark Side of the Moon is a concept album if you're talking about thematically linked songs.
And what's the theme?
I don't know, psychedelia. It's not. See, and here's why, especially, and it can be a little sticky with Pink Floyd, right? Because after um Dark Side of the Moon came Wish You Were Here.
Uh-huh.
Now, Wish You Were Here is a concept album, and the concept is they all miss Sid Barrett deeply and wish he wasn't crazy from drug use and was still in the band.
Okay.
And all of the songs tie that together. And then from there, you've got Animals, The Wall, and The Final Cut, all of which are concept albums, hard concept albums,
Hmm.
right?
Animals for sure. Yeah. We talked about
Animals
that one.
is about Roger Waters' disillusionment with the rock industry and business and things like that.
Hmm.
The Wall is his deepening disillusionment and actual outright anger
Hmm.
at the rock industry and even his fans.
And his fans, yes, and to some extent his band.
And yeah, exactly. And then The Final Cut, which is the last album, Pink Floyd album he played on, is a concept album about how he can't get over the loss of his father in World War II, which also plays into The Wall a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so those to me are true concept albums because there's a story, there's a progression, there's a narrative almost going on.
Hmm.
Certainly with The Wall, 100% for sure.
Yeah.
But I see it in Animals as well. So to me, Dark Side of the Moon doesn't live up even as and it is an amazing album. Do not get me wrong. Dark Side of the Moon, one of the all-time great rock and roll albums ever recorded by anybody. But to me, it's just thematically linked songs compared to their later work, which is absolutely concept albums.
To the point where they made a movie about,
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
so so I think there's a little bit of interpret room for
Yes,
interpretation,
absolutely.
but I certainly think there's no shortage of concept albums that tell a very specific or succinct story where there's characters, there's beginning and end, there may be a moral of a story. Like I feel like 2112 by Rush, for example, very specific. There's world building there. He's telling a story about,
Yeah, exactly.
someone, discovering music. And even this, well, the Hemispheres, no, but the song Hemispheres is, I always forget that's not the whole album. Well, it's a long song, but they tell stories. And so to me, I agree with you that I usually think of concept albums as the ones that tell these grand stories where there's a specific like set of you can almost make a movie out of them. Um,
Yeah,
but I guess I've been,
exactly.
yeah, but I guess I started to maybe relax that definition a little bit when an album we'll be discussing during Music That Matters that we discussed at that point, because that album, while it didn't tell a story about one specific character, it did tell stories about many characters, but all suffering from something that is the running theme of the album. And because it's
Right, right.
thematic, I'm like, yeah, it's, but I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you know what is widely considered to be the first concept album?
No.
No. Well, a lot of people say that the concept album did not exist until the rock era and
Hmm.
that the first concept album was Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles. So
Okay.
that would have been 1967.
Hmm.
But I would say Frank Sinatra put out two albums in the 50s that could be considered concept albums.
Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra in the wee small hours, I'm sorry, in 1955, and Only the Lonely in 1958, by the wider interpretation of thematically linked songs with a purpose,
Uh-huh.
definitely concept albums.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Frank Sinatra in the 1950s.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. And which is kind of weird when you think about it, because as amazing a singer as Frank Sinatra was, you don't really think about him taking chances on the format like that,
No.
you know?
Wow.
So,
I wonder
so
whose idea that was. I mean, who think
I,
that's the
yeah,
50s. This is well before the psychedelic era, and someone's in the studio going, we should write a bunch of songs and have them all thematically linked. I mean, that sounds like a play. That sounds like
yeah,
a almost like a crossover.
yeah, kind of. So
Wow.
what do you think it is about concept albums that draws us to it? What makes a concept album
Hmm.
great? Because
Hmm.
to me, it's the story.
Okay. I have a good answer to this.
All right, hit me with your good answer.
Okay. my answer is you may disagree with me. In my opinion, the best concept albums are those where the songs stand on their own without there even needing to be a story. The story is great, but if the songs like I don't like a concept album where all the attention was put on telling the story and the band
And not enough
missed
on writing the songs.
not enough on writing the songs.
Yeah, I
And
definitely agree with you on that. That the songs have to be good on their own.
I'm okay with the songs being written in a manner such that they flow from one to another and it really makes more musical sense to play them back to back as they were on the album. That's okay. But if you pull out a song from a concept album and you're like, that is basically filler, it's kind of
Right.
disappointing, you know? And we discussed one of the greatest concept albums in metal, Operation Mindcrime. And I'm sorry, but I don't think there's a single bit of filler on that record musically.
I agree.
Not a, not
That's
nothing.
I'll throw down a spoiler and tell you that's number one on my best concept albums list,
Oh, yeah, hands down, one of the
hands down.
and so good that they never repeated that success. They really out it was they just blew it all on that record. It was incredible. What a I mean, I can't even we talked about this album in Music That Matters. It is still today one of the greatest concept albums ever done, and it's been 30 years, I think.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Yeah. So to me, that I think all the songs stand on their own. And I think the story has to be compelling. And I know that that's what I say is compelling. Someone else may say, well, that's not compelling. It has to tell a compelling story. Otherwise, why do it? Like, why go through the hassle of making a concept album if you can't tell a good story? So
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
I think if you're going to do that, if you're going to do a concept album, first it's got to be a good concept, and then two, the songs can't suffer because of it.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. That's a great um look at it. So that what's the flip side of that then? Let's say that for the most part the songs stand up,
Mhm.
what would make that concept album suck?
So in a situation where all the songs are okay, the songs are good,
Maybe, yeah. Or I mean, obviously, so if the songs don't stand by themselves, then that's not a good concept album.
or a good album,
We
period,
can
right?
or a good album period. So what else would make a concept album suck, I guess is a better question.
Well, I mean, obviously a weak story, but I'll go a step further and say, um, if you're going to if you're going to do what the Who did with Tommy, then do it. You know, I think
Yeah.
what what makes a good dramatic piece is not only telling a good story with the lyrics, and not only writing good songs, but musically, the first song and the last song, there should be common themes, something that ties the songs together, whether it's repeating motifs, whether it's you know the songs go up in key every song. Like there's a Dream Theater album that does that, by the way. Every song the key goes up by one. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds like
um
something they would do.
yep. It's subtle unless you know the key of every song, you don't even know what's happening. So tie the songs together. Like if you go and see a play, a musical, they do that. The songs
Yeah.
in a musical are tied
Absolutely.
together. They'll call back to other songs. They'll have repeating motifs. I like that. If you're going to do that, like especially because again, Dream Theater, they did that. They've done it a lot. Um, and I think when the bar's been set, and Operation Mindcrime did not necessarily do that, but it didn't have to because the songs were so damn good and the story was so compelling
Yeah.
that it didn't necessarily need that. But where what it did do is the album starts you at the end. You know what I mean? The album, the first audio in the album is not a song, it's audio, and it's really the
I
end of the
remember now.
right, it's the end. It's their they give you the end of the story, and then the rest of the album leads up to the end. See, to me, they tied everything together.
Yeah.
It's so
And
brilliant.
I'll tell you, Andy, when they do that in a movie, it drives me crazy. I will often stop watching a movie when I find out the bulk of the movie happens in flashback.
Yeah, that's you're right. I'm not a big fan of that.
But it
Um,
works for Mindcrime
yeah,
because the rest of that's just a great album.
let's
If
just
it wasn't a concept album and they just put all those songs on and left out all the in-betweens and the dialogues and the characters and all that
Mhm.
stuff, if they just made that album as an album, it would still be a great album.
The first song is Anarchy X.
Right. Dun
It's
dun 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 dun. What
it's
a great intro.
instrumental, and it sounds intentionally like a military march, and you
Yeah.
hear almost military like chanting, it's I forget, the words escaping me. It's like rally type chanting,
Yeah.
where it's clear that like people are being militarized and radicalized, and that's what
It
happens to the lead character Nikki as he becomes radicalized.
it
But
sets the tone.
it sets the tone right away. It is absolutely stellar. We could do a whole nother episode on that song. That's
We
too
could, and
bad.
maybe we'll have to. But I'll tell you, one of the things that drew me to that album was the the two songs towards the end, The
Yeah.
Needle Lies, and oh, I'm sorry, three songs. And one of the songs, the name just flipped out of my mind. The Needle Lies. Um, oh crap, I'm a terrible fan. I've just forgotten the names of the songs. I got to look it up. I got to look up the
Look it up.
track list.
Is it Eyes of a Stranger?
Eyes of a Stranger, and there's another one.
Breaking the Silence?
Maybe. Let me see. Track list.
Breaking the Silence
Uh,
also has that
oh,
military like boom,
yeah,
boom,
it does.
boom.
The Needle Lies, I Don't Believe in Love, and Eyes of a Stranger.
Oh, I Don't Believe in Love, which is basically the hit, the the top 40 song on the album. If you're going to go that direction,
Yeah.
it's the only, you know.
Yeah, but Eyes of a Stranger was the very first Queensryche song that I ever heard on the
Okay.
radio. And I had seen them play. I
Hmm.
think they opened up for Metallica.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, they did.
yeah, and I didn't get it. I didn't get it. And Mindcrime came out, and like that and Empire are the only two Queensryche albums that I like.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I had Rage for Order and I tried liking Rage for Order, and there's a couple moments on it that are okay, but yeah.
Yeah. So
So
what do you, since we're talking about Mindcrime as an example of a great concept album,
maybe the pinnacle.
let's talk about Operation Mindcrime 2 as a great example of a
Oh,
shitty concept album.
and so bad that I could not tell you today the name of a single song. I mean, I gave that a listen and I just nope, nope,
Nope.
nope.
Yeah. I bought it. I was excited. They're going to finish the story of Nikki and
Okay,
Dr. X.
right,
And it's well, first of all, Chris DeGarmo had left the band.
right. And he was one of
And
the driving forces behind
yeah,
the band's.
and no slag on Michael Wilton. He is a great guitar player,
Yes, he is.
but Chris DeGarmo is a much better songwriter than anybody else in the band. And I feel like they were, first of all, I feel like they were trying to capitalize on what was inarguably their most popular album.
Uh-huh.
They were trying to bring back something that didn't need to be brought back.
Well, I mean, they had a series of disappointing albums, even
Yeah.
while Chris was in the band.
Yeah.
After Empire, they just could not capture the same heat, and then Chris left, and it was just disappointment after disappointment and infighting and just so that whole band, the story behind them is just heart-wrenching.
Yeah, it felt like I think they might have had a discussion, what are we gonna do next? And it makes me think of that scene in Spinal Tap where they're trying to figure out what they're gonna do next, and one of them says, "Let's do Stonehenge."
Right.
And somebody went, "Well, how what if we do Mindcrime too?" Right? And to me, the shining standout of the album is including Ronnie James Dio as Dr. X.
Okay.
And to me, that's the only reason to listen to this album.
Does he sing on the record?
He does. He sings on the record.
Okay.
And he sings, he Dios up the song. I mean,
S- Do they tell
yeah.
this? So you said they tell this, they finish the story. So do they do, is it at least a good story ending, or did they botch that
No,
too?
no, I think they to me, it's not, let's say if these were books, I would have read the second one, but I wouldn't reread it,
Okay.
you know?
That's disappointing.
Yeah,
I,
it is. The playing is uninspired. The songwriting it's not terrible. There's still some good songs on the album, but it's not Mindcrime. And if you're going to follow up something like Mindcrime, it has to be at least as good. And it isn't, which is a shitty thing for me to say, because who am I to judge these guys in the middle of their career? But I know what I like, and Operation Mindcrime 2 isn't it.
isn't it? No. Uh, how the mighty did fall. And it was an album that didn't need to be made because
Exactly.
again,
Exactly.
the first one didn't need a sequel. It was the perfect album. It told a great story. Honestly, it's, to me, it's it's okay that the story doesn't end well for the lead
Right.
character. It's uncomfortable. I hate it. It's, but
Yeah.
I
But that's
and
how things go sometimes.
yeah, and it leaves you, if you listen to that album all the way through with the lyrics in one sitting, it's like, damn,
It's
that sucks.
exhausting.
It is, and you're like,
Yeah.
you feel
You're so
something,
invested.
but right. So I like that. I think it's cool. It evokes an emotion. A rock album evokes an emotion like that. I mean, that to me, that's what tells me it's a great album. So finishing that somehow and then not doing it justice is like, don't cheapen it, folks. Just like,
Yeah.
can we leave things? My Trace and I have this discussion all the time. Sequels, remakes. It's like, do we not have any original ideas?
Yeah.
You know?
You stop while the stopping's good. So let's talk a little bit about some other really great concept albums and some other really terrible concept albums. And of course, this is all our opinion. If you want to join in the conversation and comment in the threads,
Please.
please do tell us what you loved or hated about some concept album, and whether you agree with us, you think we're
Yeah.
full of shit.
Yeah. If you think
So
Mindcrime 2 is a great album, say so. I want to hear
I
your
want to,
take on it.
I definitely want to hear from you, because I don't get it. So I want to know, hear from somebody who does. So I put together a list of 5 best and 5 worst to kind of inspire the discussion.
Mhm.
And Mindcrime is number 1 on my list, and I did kind of put them in order for
Okay.
me.
Okay.
So, let me tell
Hard
you
to
number
argue this order, by the way. Hard to
yeah,
argue. At least the
yeah.
first two, very familiar.
Number 2 on my list is Animals by Pink Floyd, which we have talked about in a Music That Matters segment.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, I mean, seriously, from Wish You Were Here to the Final Cut was one long concept album,
Yeah. The
and
concept
broken
was
up in
Waters being super angry.
yeah. And we talked about why I don't consider Dark Side of the Moon a concept album, and that's fine.
I,
But
I still don't. I know you said the theme is like psychedelia or whatever, but I'm like, I don't know that I buy that. Too vague.
yeah,
It's too broad. Like,
it's okay.
yeah,
And it's fine. And other people can think it's a concept album. I just think it's an awesome album.
absolutely.
Instead of spending a lot of time here talking about Animals, go check out the Music That Matters episode where we talk about Animals in depth. Andy is going to put a link to that in the description or up here, either up here or down there, wherever it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So go check that out and find out what we really think about animals. And I recommend that episode. One of my favorite animals. I mean,
And
one of
I'll
my favorite albums.
and I'll try to do that with Mindcrime because we discussed Mindcrime in
Yes.
super depth too.
Yeah. And I think everything else in my list we have not talked about in a music that matters. Um, so there you go. So number 3 on my list is actually 2 concept albums by the same band.
Hmm.
And it might be a band that surprises you that I like as much as I do.
Okay.
The Drive-By Truckers.
Who dat?
Who dat? They're from I believe they're from Athens, Georgia, but I may be conflating that with other bands. I'm almost sure they're from the Atlanta general area.
Okay.
So in 2001, they did I think it's a double album called Southern Rock Opera. And in 2004, they did an album called The Dirty South. And both of these, the concepts, they both tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
And Southern Rock Opera was first, and it's kind of a fictionalized expansion on the story of Leonard Skinner and their legacy.
Oh,
So some of the story is true and other is not. And to me, that's what makes that concept album so compelling, is that they took a real story, real life events, and they turned it into something that was even bigger.
so let's take a minute because I didn't even know this band was a band
Yeah.
and say, first of all, you were 100% correct that they are based in Athens, Georgia. And the Drive-By Truckers, co-founded by Patterson Hood, who is the
Yeah.
bassist, son of the bassist David Hood from Muscle Shoals Rhythm Section.
Yes, he is.
So there's a connection there. There's a familial connection there to that
Yeah.
scene.
And Jason Isbell, who you may have heard of,
Yes.
was in the Drive-By Truckers for a number of years until his drinking got out of control, honestly, and they booted him.
Oh,
Um, but he's still out there and making music, and
yes, he
their music
is.
that they made together was absolutely fantastic.
Okay.
Um, it was like when uh oh geez, man, today is not the day for names for me. The one guy that joined Jellyfish that just took their second album and just amped it up. The first album was so great, and their second album was even better because of this new guitar player that came in. Um,
Jellyfish.
yeah, Jellyfish. So yeah, and then so Southern Rock Opera is basically an expansion on the Leonard Skinner story. And then The Dirty South is kind of a follow-up to that, where they spend the whole album kind of dissecting the good and bad and ugly of Southern rock as a
Hmm.
genre or a scene. Um, the Patterson is an absolutely phenomenal songwriter
Yeah.
and a really fantastic guitar player to boot, and he does not suffer fools. And if you are ever feeling like everybody around you is an idiot or an asshole, listen to the Dirty South, because you will feel Patterson so hard.
Okay.
And whether you identify the idiots and assholes that he does, his anger at those people in society will flow through you and allow you to, you know, have a little catharsis without having to resort to, say, fork stabbings, beatings, or arson. Right.
Okay.
Plus, it's really good, kind of old fashioned roots rock and roll. And it's
Uh-huh.
just so refreshing to listen to. It's not super polished production. It's, guitars and bass and drums and a little bit of keyboard here and there, a little bit of organ here and there. And it's just, they're both such fantastic albums. They're so well worth listening to. And I love the idea of taking the real life incident of the airplane crash that killed half of Leonard Skinner, and exploring that legacy and what that did to people in the South. It's easy to poo-poo Leonard Skinner as a nostalgia band these days, a cover band, right? No original members, um, just kind of living off songs that were written 40, 50 years ago. But their legacy is something that permeates the rock music of the South to a level which we don't even think about anymore because it's so pervasive.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so to listen to the Drive By Truckers, and this is now 23 years ago that they put this album out,
Yeah.
explore that and dissect it a little bit is really just fascinating. So there we go. Now I'm going through my list like you don't have any list. Do you want to mention anybody, or you want me to finish my
Well,
top five?
I, I I'm okay with you finishing your top five. I don't have a list of top five, but you already listed two albums I would have absolutely picked. And I can, the only other album that I have to give um honorable mention to, because even though it's not one of my favorite albums of all time, it's one that it started in me a whole like different it changed how I view music, and that was 2112 by Rush.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
I mean, it's not my favorite album by Rush, and in fact, I think Rush actually did another concept album that more recently called Clockwork Angels that I didn't even know was a concept album until very recently. But 2112 was the first album that, for me, it's a great band. I was actually going back through their old catalog because I discovered Rush from Moving Pictures and started going back. And then I heard this and I thought, man, they were really, after Moving Pictures, which was a great album, not a lot of long songs, not no concept. Going back, I was basically watching their evolution in reverse.
right,
And when I got to 2112 and I realized where they had come from, I thought, man, this is really something. The fact that you could hear young Neil and what he was dealing with and going through back then, as opposed to what he had, like it's interesting to watch his de-evolution by
right.
listening to his lyrics going back in time, because that's really how I ingested Rush, from Moving Pictures backwards, you know.
Yeah,
Um, and but also it was it was again not my favorite Rush album, but definitely one that sticks with me as it tells a really compelling science fiction-y story. You can hear that Neil was struggling with caste and with, societies, and how they, it's almost like a dystopian future he was talking about, where
yeah,
art,
yeah, it
like,
is.
and yeah, there was something that hit me really hard about that album. Um, and so to me, that has like honorable mention anytime we talk about concept albums. The only other one I can
Yeah,
think of that had even close to that kind of impact was Scenes from a Memory, which was Dream Theater. I think we've talked, if we haven't talked about that album, we probably will. It's it's Jordan Rudess's first album with the band, and to me, it's it that album and everything they did after that for like 10 years, it solidifies Dream Theater's place as one of the greatest progressive bands to ever walk the face of the earth.
gotcha. Yeah,
The level of complexity and orchestration and just everything that makes Dream Theater amazing started when Jordan joined that band. It was like the gloves were off. He just brought such fire and energy to that band, but also the complexity and how, again, they their music just, it was, they were, before that they were a progressive metal band, and then when Jordan joins, they take 10 leaps forward in terms of
yeah,
just thematic approaches, and it was just something else entirely. So those two albums I absolutely feel like have to be on any of my lists, you know what I mean?
yep, yep, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I want to say something here that is a little confessatorial, if that's a
Okay.
word. If it's not, I just made it up. So I have pretty significant hearing loss, especially on my left side.
Okay.
And my particular hearing loss is not full spectrum. It's
Hmm.
in the range where people's voices are. So I have a lot of difficulty understanding words when I'm talking or listening to more than one person or listening to music.
Oh, that's
I have
frustrating.
I have a hard time understanding the lyrics in songs unless like a pop song, they're so far out front. Um, so rock music to me, I never really pay attention to the lyrics. I listen to the melodies and the tonality of the singer's voice, and I don't always catch the words. So for me to love a concept album where the story is part of the importance of it, imagine how much I have to listen to it to be able to discern the words and understand the story.
Wow.
So when I'm talking about these my favorite concept albums, I have listened to these albums hundreds of times
Mm.
so that I can understand the story. And
Wow.
I just want to throw that out there.
Interesting. Does it
So
help to read the lyrics as you're listening?
sometimes, but I don't usually have that patience.
Because you're listening while you're doing something else.
Yeah, a lot of times, or I'm yeah, usually I used to listen to music mostly when I worked on guitars
Hmm.
because but now I listen to music all the time because my tinnitus is so bad that I need background noise.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's a different episode.
Yeah.
Uh,
Seriously.
so number 4 on my list is the newest one. It came out the same year as the Dirty South, which is 2004,
Hmm.
but it's a hard metal band.
Yeah.
And I would say this is from this is the peak or near the peak of their progressive phase. And this band is called Mastodon. They're also from the Atlanta, Georgia area. And the album is Leviathan. And
Hmm.
it is a progressive metal retelling of the story of Moby Dick.
Oh, how's about that?
Yeah, which I
And
think
this
is a
album is
really
20 years old?
it's 20 years old.
What?
And they
Come on.
like their next album was still really kind of proggy,
Yeah.
but every album that they've put out after that has gotten more and more accessible and a little less proggy. They still
Okay.
throw their prog minute moments in, but I think their newer albums are much more accessible to non-prog people
Hmm.
than their first few albums. And Leviathan, I think, was their third album. And it's just fantastic. And what I love about it is the idea. Number one, they're telling a familiar story. Even if you've never read Moby Dick, you know the story of Moby Dick,
Yeah.
right? Somebody chasing something, whether it is concrete or metaphysical, to their own detriment and never being able to let go of that thing, and it destroys them. That's kind of a classic story, a
Sure.
tragedy.
Yeah.
And they're telling it, and it is the most awesome metal music that you could have listened to, including like a 13.5 minute instrumental to close
Ooh.
out the album that is just amazing. And this album was my introduction to Mastodon.
Okay.
I was having a conversation with a friend about concept albums and talking about Mindcrime, and he was like, well, have you heard this album Leviathan by Mastodon? It's a concept album. And he played me a song from the album called Sea Beast, which is a killer song. And I was like,
Hmm.
I got to hear the rest of this album. And I'm completely blown away. So they made it on my top 5 list. That's number 4. Number 5 is an album that everybody's heard about. It is the 1972 epic from David Bowie, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars.
You know,
What?
when you say the full title of the album, it's very clear there was a lot of drugs going on.
Yeah, yeah. And what are you going to do, right? So this was an album from pretty early in Bowie's career. He kind of took on the role of Ziggy Stardust.
Hmm.
It was the, you know, he was, and the Spiders were led by guitarist Mick Ronson, who is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the unsung heroes of the glam rock movement. It's not higher on the list because even though it's a really cool concept and Bowie commits to it, fully commits to it. Um, not every song on the album is awesome. There's some filler here, right? You've got Moon Age Daydream,
Hmm.
amazing song. Ziggy Stardust, of course, great song. Suffragette City, great song.
Hmm.
Rock and Roll Suicide, another great song. But so about half of the album is awesome and about half of the album is filler. But
Hmm.
each piece has a place in the story, you know? So it, it to me, it's a really compelling character more than a compelling story. It's
Okay.
like this, I'm not entirely convinced David Bowie wasn't an alien for real, that Ziggy Stardust is who he really was, and David Bowie was his Earth name, you know? But it's such a great album. And even though it's a bit old, 1972, the production is not amazing, although the remaster made a lot of difference.
Yeah,
I don't listen to it as much these days, but I'll tell you, before Mindcrime came out, this was my go-to concept album.
really. Not even animals, huh?
Yeah, well, I heard this album first.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so definitely it would have probably, yeah, you're right. It probably would have been number two behind Animals.
Okay.
Um, but you know, and from another kind of band from that same era, I want to give a shout out to an honorable mention to Tommy from The Who,
Yeah.
which they turned into, I mean, I think of Tommy as kind of the first rock opera,
Yeah. Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and kind of, which is a level above the concept album to a certain extent.
Hmm.
But to me, Tommy has so much filler on it that it's not an amazing album.
And I mean, that's to me and to you. There are other people that think Tommy's just the greatest album, but I'm with
Yeah.
you that it's there are a few great songs on the album, but by and large, there's a bunch of filler on there. That's my opinion
Yeah.
too.
I mean, you've got Pinball Wizard, I'm Free, and We're Not Going to Take It. Those three songs alone are worth buying this album for,
Yeah.
and listening to the whole thing. And I love that they turned it into a movie musical.
Hmm.
And you know, I mean, they had Tina Turner was the Acid Queen, which is another
Yeah.
really good song.
Yeah.
Um, Elton John was in it. You know,
Yep.
he sang Pinball Wizard in the movie, and
Hmm.
it is the Elton Johnest song ever. So it's really kind of amazing that Pete Townsend wrote it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the right hand technique required to play an acoustic guitar like Townsend does on Pinball Wizard is
Crazy.
amazing. I when I learned that song, I developed a knot on my forearm
Hmm.
from having to hold the pick so tight to strum that hard.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
and so those are my top five best concept albums. I still listen to all of them today. I don't listen to Tommy very much, but I wanted to mention it because of the rock opera angle. And I think all of those albums meet our qualifications for what is a great concept album. The songs, by and large, stand on their own.
Yep.
The story is great. The characters are compelling. And I think, especially with Ziggy Stardust, it's the characters that drive the story rather than, like with Mindcrime, the story that drives the characters.
Hmm.
Um, and these are just, and we're not even talking about the musicianship on these albums. These are all super guitar heavy albums. You know,
Absolutely.
there's no it, Animals is probably the only one where keyboards are an integral part of the band, right? Because of Richard Wright being one of the four members at this time.
Hmm.
The I don't think the other bands even had full-time keyboard players in them at the time these albums came out.
Hmm.
Maybe took them on tour. Um, so let's switch over to my possibly controversial list of the top 5 worst concept albums.
I can't even believe I'm looking at this.
I
The
know.
first one on the list. What?
Right? And these are actually in reverse order.
Okay.
So the way I wrote them down was from the one I listen to the one I don't.
Okay.
Right. So I'm going to give the list in reverse order, which is actually the order it should be, where number 5 is actually the worst.
Okay.
Right. Because if you think a big long list of concept albums and you get down to the bottom and these are the last 5 on it.
Gotcha.
Right. Okay. So I've already mentioned this album. It's Operation Mindcrime 2. I think that's the worst concept album that
Hmm.
was done for my taste. Lightning doesn't strike twice. And the best thing about the album is Ronnie James Dio as Dr. X,
Yeah, it's a shame.
right? And I don't think we can even argue about, I don't think we even need to argue about that.
No,
All
no, we
right,
don't.
number 2, right next to the bottom, the penultimate worst concept album,
Hmm.
Styx, Kilroy Was Here.
Ugh,
Yeah.
blurred.
Now, Paradise Theater was a great album.
A double album, wasn't it?
Uh, no, it was a gatefold, but it was a single disc.
Oh, okay.
Um, and I think it was a picture disc at the time. I know my copy is a picture disc, but that doesn't mean it came out at the time. So
Paradise
they
Theater
took
was a
this,
great record.
oh, and radio hits, Too Much Time on My Hands,
Hmm.
fantastic album, and they followed it up with this slab of garbage that nearly killed their career. And it definitely killed the relationship between Tommy Shaw and Dennis DeYoung.
Yeah, because this was a Dennis record through and through.
Yeah, yeah. And it was number one, it was not a great album.
Nope.
From the songs don't stand on their own.
Nope.
You have to have the story. And I think Kilroy Was Here would have made a great Broadway show.
Oh, quite possibly.
Yeah, I think it would have made a great Broadway show. It was, dystopian and fascism and all those kind of things that resonate with the public.
Hmm.
But you don't take that show on a nationwide rock tour
Yeah. Yeah.
and turn your two hot guitar players into characters in a dystopian story.
Yeah. Yeah. Just not a good idea.
Yeah. So, um, this album was so bad. One of my friends bought it and I listened to his copy and I've never listened to it again. I see the videos every now and then. And I actually, a few years ago, I dug out the show of a video of the full show on YouTube and watched that. And
Hmm.
it was still a steaming pile of garbage. It was even worse after I saw the staging of it. And
Okay.
but then I thought, well, I saw it around the same time I saw Hamilton on TV, where they
Hmm.
filmed a production of Hamilton.
Hmm.
And I thought, if they had done this show like that on Broadway, like they did Hamilton,
Hmm.
it probably would have run for years on Broadway,
Wow.
because
Crazy.
it does have some interesting character development. The story is interesting. I don't think it quite rises to the level of compelling, but it's just such a shit show of an album.
The songs are garbage.
Yeah, the songs are but probably great on Broadway.
And it was a complete departure from what they had just done.
Yeah,
Um, I
which
mean,
was, yeah, awesome.
yeah, they had a great record. Tommy and James are great guitar players, and to
They
relegate
are.
them to backup roles and do a keyboard heavy record, it just, I don't know. It was the 80s and everyone was starting to feel the pressure of pop, and
Yeah.
all that stuff, and it's just not a good idea. No,
And
Dennis tried to take the band in a weird direction.
I respect that he had this story in him,
Hmm.
but I
Or,
feel like he maybe should have done it as a solo album
or write a book.
or write a book. Yeah, or do a Broadway play. So, uh, my third worst concept album, and this is saying something about Kilroy and Mindcrime too,
Uh-huh.
that my third worst is from 1985. It's the Edgar Winter Group, and it's a concept album called Mission Earth.
Mm.
Now, I'm sure you've never heard of this album.
Mm-mm.
No. So Edgar, he may still be, but in 1985 he definitely was a Scientologist,
Okay.
and the leader of Scientology, a guy called
Was.
L. Ron Hubbard,
Uh-huh.
who has written novels, sci-fi novels,
Sure.
told Edgar to record a Scientology themed concept album.
Great idea.
Yeah, and it's exactly that good. It's exactly that good.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, the first song sucks, the last song sucks. Everything in between is a hot pile of garbage. But it's still not as bad as Kilroy Was Here.
Oh,
Oh,
yikes.
that was hard, right? All
Oh.
right. So my fourth worst concept album, and these are all my opinions, right?
Of-
My opinion is worth exactly what you pay for it.
Right.
Comes from 1994.
Mm.
It was Nine Inch Nails' second album, The Downward Spiral.
Wait, what?
Wait,
Downward
what?
Spiral? Downward Spiral is a concept album?
Yes.
I didn't know
And
that.
and I think that's why it's not a good concept album.
Oh, so you're not saying it's a bad album. You're saying it's not a good concept album. Am I
Exactly.
okay? All right.
Exactly.
Okay,
Not a good concept album.
that's a different ball of wax
Because,
than your other
like
books.
Trent Reznor at the time was dealing with some serious mental health issues.
No,
And
really?
yeah, absolutely. And he's been very open with his difficulties in handling fame
Hmm.
and the adoration of the public. And his first album was so good, expectations were so high for this second album. There was so much pressure on him, and it did put him into literally a downward spiral in his mental health. Um, but from my perspective, get therapy, and when you come through the other side of it, then write your album.
Well, what was the concept?
The concept was he's depressed and anxious and miserable, and everybody hates him and he hates everything.
That was the concept of the album?
As far as I can tell,
Oh.
he may have had a different concept, but I will say the music on this album is fantastic.
Yeah. It's
Just to me, it's a poor concept album.
okay. It's one of the, I mean, it's a seminal 90s record, and it's the one I know of when I think of Trent.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
But here's the last one on my list of the five worst concept albums.
Once again, didn't
Which,
even know it was a concept album.
yeah. Um, and this is one of my all-time favorite bands.
Yes, it is.
So it's it's Iron Maiden from 1988,
Shocking.
Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
What?
Yeah. So but now think about it, Andy. This is the album that drove Adrian out of the band.
Really?
Yeah. Somewhere in time, he was already kind of complaining about all the use of guitar synthesizers. And that escalated in Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. And after that, he left the band.
Goodbye. That was
Yeah.
it for him. That was the
This
that
was
was
the
the
straw
straw
that
that
broke
broke.
the camel's back.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's how hard this album was. And he wrote Adrian wrote two songs, co-wrote two songs on this album. Can I Play with Madness, which is hands down the best song on the album,
Heard of that. Yep.
and the one that right after it, which is called The Evil That Men Do, which has one of the worst Iron Maiden choruses from this era.
Uh-oh.
It's just Bruce Dickinson singing The Evil That Men Do goes on and on over and over and over.
Okay. That's like a
The
Sting thing.
yeah, it is. So the first half of this album, side one, Moonchild, Infinite Dreams, Can I Play with Madness, and The Evil That Men Do, all fantastic songs.
Okay.
And actually, I take that back. Adrian Smith wrote Moonchild. He wrote the music for Moonchild.
Okay.
And it has a very cool intro. It's unusual for Iron Maiden. It's a different kind of song,
Okay.
and it works, man. It works, and I dig it. The first side, great. Second side, which starts with the 10-minute long Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, in which again Bruce Dickinson repeats seventh son of a seventh son so many times you think it's a warm-up for an actor, right? And just the second side drops off so precipitously. They're just, in my
Oh,
opinion, not good songs.
that sucks. Oh well.
But I love
Problem.
Iron Maiden so much, I still listen to this album. And I
Yeah.
usually get halfway through Seventh Son, the song Seventh Son, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. And I skip to the next album.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right. But I'll always remember, and I saw them on this tour, and it
Of
was a
course.
fantastic live show because they only played the good songs from it,
Oh, thank God.
you know. Um, and I'll tell you, they had a song on the previous album, Somewhere in Time, that I think
Hmm.
is the worst Iron Maiden song, and that's The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner.
Okay.
Yeah. So the best thing about Seventh Son is that song's not on it.
No, I, I, I kind of want to
Uh
go listen to that now.
Yeah, I think you should. And what you should do is listen to here, do me this favor.
Okay. All right.
Listen to The Number of the Beast and Peace of Mind,
Mm,
and then listen to Seventh Son.
okay.
Now, if you start at Iron Maiden and you go all the way through sequentially till you get to Seventh Son, it's
Mhm.
not jarring because
Sure.
they make a natural progression,
Hmm.
right? But this is the fourth, I think, album with the same lineup,
Okay. Right.
right? Peace of Mind, Power Slave, uh, Somewhere in Time, and Seventh Son.
Yep.
So it's the fourth album with a steady lineup. And then Adrian left the band after this album. And I, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So to
Okay.
me, not a good concept album because for one, I don't think they stick to the story.
Hmm.
Although there is the whole idea of the seventh son of a seventh son being this special creature, special person that is going to change the world either for good or for evil
Hmm.
is there. I get that, but it's hard for me to follow the chain of the story through. And maybe that's because the lyrics aren't compelling enough for me to have pounded them into my skull,
Hmm. Just didn't
you know?
find it compelling enough to like really keep listening and over and
Yeah.
over until okay.
But I love side one.
Well,
So what can I say?
you're still
I
an
know
Iron
it,
Maiden
it
fan.
yeah. And it's still, I mean, even though this is at the bottom of my list of favorite concept albums, way at the bottom, uh, it doesn't mean I hate the album. Like I put my copy of Mindcrime 2 into a binder that I keep down in the basement. I didn't even rip it to my computer. I never listened to it.
But you did keep it.
But I did keep it, yeah.
Hmm.
Well, because I never get rid of anything.
Oh, okay. But you did
Kilroy
keep
is
it.
here and Mission Earth I never even bought because
Smart.
all I had to do was listen to them and go, wow, that's horrifying. Um, and Downward Spiral and Seventh Son, I have both of those albums, but I
Because
just
they're
don't listen to them very much because they are still good music.
right.
But I think they fall short as concept albums. And I really kind of bring that up as a way of kind of reiterating that this is all subjective. It's all subjective.
And it's art, which means our opinion is almost meaningless.
Yes, exactly.
But it's a
Exactly.
fun conversation. All right.
Yes.
Well,
And now
this
there's a
there's
there's an
something else
honorable
on this
mention.
list. Yeah.
Yeah. There's an honorable mention for the worst. And
Yeah.
the reason that it didn't actually make my list
Yes, I'm
is
curious.
because I can't bring myself to even put it on the list. It's that bad.
What? I think a good reason to leave it off the list, if you're looking for a reason, is because there's a guest on the album. So it's not even an album by a band, it's an album by a band and some guy.
Yeah.
It's like a
And that is,
one-off, you know what I mean?
yeah, that is the 2011 album Lulu by Metallica and Lou Reed.
What a weird pairing that was. Do you all
Yeah.
remember 2011 when Lou
Uh,
Reed and Metallica hooked up for an
well, and
album?
here's the reason it it only gets an honorable mention as the worst because I had completely forgotten about it when we were thinking about this episode until a couple of days ago. I saw a YouTube video, a thumbnail, and I clicked on it, and it was James Hetfield complaining that this album doesn't suck. It's just fans didn't understand it, so everybody says it sucks.
Oh, it's our fault.
It's our fault.
Wow. Well, what a great job of victim blaming.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're the one that shoved this into our ear holes, James. We're the victims
Yeah.
here.
Which number one, the worst selling Metallica album of all time. It only sold 13,000 copies in the first week of its release.
Wow.
Yeah.
No one was interested.
Now, my album only sold 27 copies in the first week. So, no comparison, but I'm not Metallica or
You're
Lou Reed.
just because you haven't sold as many albums as Metallica doesn't make your opinion any less valid. It is, after all, your opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Andy, are there concept albums that I overlooked at the bottom of my list that you think we need to talk about?
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, if you would have asked me when we were putting this list together, and you did, what the worst concept album would have been, I would have the best and the worst. I would have absolutely given you the bookmarks of Operation Mindcrime and Mindcrime 2 as being
Yeah.
the best and the worst concept albums. Crazy that we both agree on that and that they make the list in the weirdest ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that something?
Yeah, they really did. But uh, because I knew Kilroy was here. I knew that was a concept album
Yeah.
and a terrible one. I did not know, I didn't even know Mission Earth existed.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew that. I knew about that album because my brother was a big fan of L. Ron Hubbard's books,
Hmm.
his sci-fi books.
Hmm.
And so when he discovered those books, he also found out about this album. So my brother had a copy of it and we listened to it a little bit, but even he didn't like it. And he wanted to because it was, sci-fi and he thought L. Ron Hubbard was a good sci-fi writer.
Yeah. No,
So
I think this is a great list. It's perfect list, and I think I I agree. I agree that Mindcrime 2 is it's just, I'm sorry, I can't say enough about it, but I did not even remember that Metallica Lou Reed album existed.
Yeah, exactly. Completely forgot about it until I
I don't
clicked
even
on that video.
I don't even think Metallica remembers it. Anyway, no, I think you nailed it. Um so before we go,
Well,
I have to do the outro.
yeah, let's do the outro and get on to Music That Matters, in which we're going to talk about a concept album. So
Please
make
visit
sure
us at
you
Different
come
Strings
back for that album.
Podcast. Yeah, please visit us, differentstringspodcast.com. Email us your questions or topic ideas at contact at differentstringspodcast.com. We're also on Facebook at Different Strings Podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, hit the bell, comment, and do all the things that the YouTube algorithms love. And please subscribe to Different Strings Podcast wherever you consume this media. And please check out Wes's solo project, Hypersonic Secret, and their EP project Mayhem. It's on Bandcamp. So go to hypersonicsecret.bandcamp.com and pick up a copy of that amazing slab of surf adjacent rock and roll. It is a concept album, and the concept is amazing surf music. There, I said it.
Well, I'll tell you, it is a concept album, even though there's no lyrics.
Wait, what?
There is a story that goes along with each song, and if you buy the album, you get the liner notes, and in the liner notes, it explains where each song fits in the story.
I was just kidding. You mean that's legitimately a concept album?
It
Why have
is it's legit. It's a concept album in three parts. The first part is the hypersonic secret craft leaving the Earth. The second part is the hypersonic secret craft reaching the moon. And the third part is the hypersonic secret craft reaching Mars.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that's where it ends.
So
Is there going to
I
be
don't
a
know if
Hypersonic Secret Part 2?
yeah. So second album is already, yeah, Project Mayhem 2. No, the second EP is going to be called Moonbase Surficalis, and it will be a little more traditional surf music. I've already got the songs written. I just need to get them demoed out and recorded.
Okay.
And then the third EP is going to have another name that I haven't trademarked yet. So
You can't tell
I
us
don't
it's a
want to.
hypersonic secret.
It's a hypersonic secret, but yeah, these are concept albums with no lyrics.
You're a mess.
I am. So please come back and join us for that and this, and tell us about your favorite and least favorite concept albums in the comments, or drop us an email so we can talk about them and you.
Yeah. All right.